Dear students, welcome to RATS, Racing Against Time for Students in Pathology. And we shall be continuing with our classes in hematology. Case history. A 28-year-old male of African origin came to the medicine OP with complaints of breathlessness on exertion. On examination, he was found to be mildly jaundiced with respiratory rhonchi. He was also found to be having a scar on his left leg. When asked, he disclosed a history of recurrent ulcer in the same spot. What is your diagnosis? Discuss the pathogenesis, blood picture, laboratory investigations to confirm the diagnosis. So this is the leg ulcer we have been talking about. Always look for keywords in the history. African, jaundiced, ulcer. So my differential diagnosis would be hereditary spherocytosis and sickle cell anemia. And the patient being of African origin, we can go to the diagnosis of sickle cell anemia. The importance of this topic is given in the enclosure. It can be asked in multiple stations for the student. Definitions are definitions. It is a hemolytic anemia, hereditary in nature, with the production of hemoglobin S. It is an abnormal hemoglobin. It can present as a sickle cell trait or a sickle cell anemia. Trait in the sense it is present, but not to the extent of causing an overt disease, whereas sickle cell anemia is a full-blown disease. Due to the precipitation of sickle cell hemoglobin S, the cell becomes crescentic or hammock-shaped. This is the pathogenesis that we people should follow. All of us know that there is a substitution of valine for glutamic acid, but that is not sufficient. In the normal beta globin chain, you find that there is the glutamic acid which is getting converted into hemoglobin S, and there is a change. Initially, the hemoglobin S is soluble, whereas after the substitution by valine, you find that there is a precipitation of the hemoglobin S polymer, which is arranged in chains. Normally, this is not evident when the blood is well oxygenated, but when there is some degree of deoxygenation, the sickling starts. This is the hemoglobin S involved cell, and whenever it passes through narrow capillaries or stasis, it undergoes a crescentic change, and you get what is called a sickle cell. This can lead to a vaso-occlusion and many other crises, which we shall be seeing. Electron microscopically, you find that all the precipitated hemoglobin S are arranged in bundles of elongated fibers. Each fiber has got about 14 to 16 spirally arranged filaments. And the filaments are in turn made up of hemoglobin beads. During deoxygenation, the hemoglobin S is precipitated and the chains become strong. So this is the biochemistry that you people would already have read. The crescentic cells are removed by the mononuclear phagocytic system. This is important. The clinical manifestations or even the complications. You find that there are a plethora of manifestations, starting from a retinopathy up to a leg ulcer. You people can go through it. Patient can also develop a recurrent pneumonia. That is why I mentioned a history of rhonchi in the clinical history. Initially, there can be a splenomegaly, but later on, it undergoes an atrophy, what we call as an autosplenectomy. Polylithiasis is classical, and the patient can be having gallstones and pain in the right hypochondria. Blood picture. This is what we should write. I have been always telling you people, the blood picture and the bone marrow picture are the paramount topics in hematology. The hemoglobin is reduced. It can be a moderate anemia or a severe anemia. And it is increased in events of sickle cell crisis. RBCs are usually normocytic, normochromic, and there is a moderate degree of anisopoikilocytosis. Target cells, polychromatic cells can all be seen. We'll be seeing the blood picture shortly. Normoblasts are present. In any of the hemolytic anemias, polychromatic cells and normoblasts will be present because there is destruction of the peripheral RBCs. Lifespan is reduced to as low as 8 days, but sometimes it becomes very low, even 2 days is the span. And the reticulocyte count, normally it is 0.2 to 2%. Here it can be 10 to 20%. These are all things that we people should remember. Initially, the cells undergo what is called as reversible sickling. There is a sickling when it passes through a narrow passage, but once it is out, it undergoes a change to the normal. It becomes a normal RBC. But again, when it passes through a narrow capillary, there is sickling. These are called as sickle-unsickle cycles. But eventually, it becomes too rigid and sickled. It is called irreversible sickling. Look at this picture over here. Normal RBCs, crescentic or hammock-shaped RBCs, which are the sickle cells. This is a peripheral blood picture. You people will have to describe. I've already mentioned RBCs. Look at these. They are all normocytic, normochromic. When you look at it in a bird's eye view, there is not much of an abnormality. But looking at it carefully, there are many sickle cells or crescentic RBCs. Also, I mentioned polychromatic cell. Look at this purplish tinge in an RBC. It is a polychromatic cell or a reticulocyte. These can be present. Sometimes we can get target cells. Look at the hemoglobinization in the center. Again, another target cell is over here. So, what are types of cells that we are seeing? RBC is normocytic, normochromic. There can be sickle cells. What is the reversible sickling? Irreversible sickling. The presence of reticulocytes. Serum bilirubin is increased because it is a hemolytic anemia. And any other finding you people will have to mention. RBCs over, WBCs are usually normal unless the patient has got some infection. There can be a leukocytosis. But they are all secondary changes and not primary changes in sickle cell anemia. This is extremely important. You find that there is a substitution of valine for glutamic acid. The hemoglobin A converted to hemoglobin S. And initially it is in a state of oxygenation, therefore the hemoglobin S is soluble. But when it undergoes deoxygenation, as in the case of stasis or narrow passages, you find hemoglobin S gets precipitated. And initially there is what is called as a reversible sickling. But later on, the cells are too rigid, we call it as irreversible sickling. And these are all narrow sinusoidal spaces, an organ such as the spleen. So you find in the sinusoids, apart from the endothelial cells, there will be the phagocytic cells. So look at these blue cells, they are all phagocytic cells. And once there is sickling, there is stasis, and they are phagocytosed and destroyed. So this is the spleen. In a spleen, there can be hemolysis, congestion, as well as infarction because of repeated obstruction. Sometimes you find that there can be an adhesion and stasis, which we call as veno-occlusion. Veno-occlusion is one of the complications of sickle cell anemia. And the stasis can also lead to microvascular occlusion and infarction. So this entire table is extremely important. I would like you people to kindly revise it repeatedly and write the answer. This is one flow diagram that you people can reproduce very easily. Oxygenated cells containing hemoglobin S, it is soluble, but then it is getting polymerized. Whenever there is stage, it is getting precipitated, the hemoglobin S and the cells become crescentic in shape, they cause a vaso-occlusion, which can lead to ischemia or a hemolysis, or there can be nitrous oxide production, which can be again destructive. These are all the various crises. One is a vaso-occlusive crisis, hand-foot syndrome. The vessels in the region of the metacarpals or the metatarsals, you find that they are all very narrow, but still the normal RBC can pass through it, but the sickle cells, they cause obstruction. Because of that, the patient will be having excruciating pain, sometimes even action of the bone. Bone and joint crisis in the large bones as well as the ribs. Abdominal crisis, there can be infarction of the spleen, mesentery, or any other viscera. In the central nervous system, there can be hypoxic neurosis. Pulmonary crisis, the patient can present with tachypnea and chest pain. Repeatedly sickling can lead to aplasia. The bone marrow runs out of steam and there is an aplasia of the bone marrow. Megaloblastic crisis can occur because of the depletion of the B12 and the folic acid. And hemolytic crisis can be associated with G6PD deficiency also. Splenic sequestration, we have already mentioned. Infectious crisis. Fulminant infection due to splenic sequestration can be caused by Streptococcus or Shigella. So this can be a university question for you people. There can be complications such as polylithiasis, autosplenectomy, or infarction of the spleen, chronic leg ulcers, which we had seen, jaundice, ischemia and stroke, and renal ischemia, again leading to infarction. These are the other complications in sickle cell anemia. How do you identify or confirm a sickle cell anemia? A full-blown sickle cell anemia we can see in the peripheral smear, but in a trait we have to identify. Slide test is one. What we do is we place a drop of blood and then you surround it with Vaseline. Then you place a cover slip on the top. What happens is the RBCs will utilize all the oxygen, and after some time there is no oxygen that can penetrate inside. It becomes reduced and hemoglobin S is precipitated. There can be sickling that can be seen under the microscope. So this is called a sickling test. And then there is another test called the sodium dithionate reduction test or a sodium metabisulfite reduction test. This is a control sample that we are seeing. There is no amount of precipitation and we can see what is behind. But in this case, there is a precipitation of the hemoglobin S. So can you see the lines behind? That is because the sample is transparent. But here, because of the precipitation, it is opaque and it cannot be seen. So this is called a reduction test. Sodium dithionate reduction test and sodium metabisulfite is another reduction test. Hemoglobin F estimation that can be done in a case of electrophoresis because this is protective. Chorionic villus biopsy. Any of genital disorders, we can ask for a chorionic villus biopsy. Even the Down syndrome is another example. So these are all the other investigations. Hemoglobin estimation, peripheral smear findings, and Vaseline test, other reduction test, hemoglobin F estimation, chorionic villus biopsy. This is the hemoglobin electrophoresis. The apparatus is over here. And in a case of sickle cell trait, as well as the sickle cell anemia, I find that the hemoglobin S is moving. So we will be able to identify. So I'm taking you to a train journey. Normally, I think you people can recollect the rhythmic motion of the train. There are two types of electrophoresis in sickle cell anemia. One is called an agardial electrophoresis and another is cellulose acetate electrophoresis. Why am I talking to you people against this background? Now this is an electrophoresis. Normally what happens when a patient's blood is kept, the different types of hemoglobin move at different speed and they get separated. So this is a common mnemonic that I generally give to the students. A2. Instead of A2, you can call it as B2. we too get into a train and we say, see you to our friends. We will see you later. And the train starts moving. When the train starts moving, there is a usual rhythmic sound that is there. SDG, SGG, SGG, etc. And at the end of it, you go to it. The fag end of your journey, you reach and you get down at a station called Barts and you go home. This is the way you people remember. A2, we say CU, SDG is the movement. You go to the fag end of the journey, get down at a station called Barts and go home. So look at the way different hemoglobins are separated and hemoglobin S can be identified. That is a method of identifying a sickle cell anemia. That is what we had seen in the previous slide. So there is a separation and hemoglobin electrophoresis is extremely important in the diagnosis. So this is the hammock-shaped cell and spacebo. We come to the end of the class.